Atlanta, Georgia. 2:17 a.m. A 911 operator picks up a call that will haunt her for years. Caller, he's back, he's not supposed to be here. I saw him buried. He was dead. Then, silence. Police arrive at a desolate stretch of woods. A shallow grave. A man's body. An ID in the pocket, Malik Trenard Jackson. Case closed, or so they think. But 3 days later, another report comes in. Another crime scene. Another body. Same man. Same name. Same fingerprints. How can someone die twice? What secret was Malik hiding that made someone bury him before he was even gone? Tonight, we're not just telling a story. We're unraveling a case that defies logic, a case that forces you to ask, what would someone risk to erase their past, and who would make sure they never get the chance? Welcome back to the channel, and if you're new here, welcome to the home of true crime. Before we begin, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss stories like this. Cases where truth is stranger, darker, and far more dangerous than fiction. Share this video with someone who loves true crime, because what you're about to hear might be one of the most unsettling cases you'll ever come across. Malik Trenard Jackson was 42 years old. Born and raised in Macon, Georgia, he came from a world where survival often meant making choices that weren't always clean, but always necessary. His mother, Patrice, worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table. His father left when Malik was barely 4. That absence carved something deep into him, a need to prove himself, to be seen as more than just another name in a struggling neighborhood. He wasn't a bad man. At least, not at first. He was smart. He could fix anything, cars, appliances, even people's problems. That talent earned him trust, but also trouble. By his 20s, Malik had built a small contracting business. By his 30s, he had also built a list of debts, broken promises, and complicated relationships. He married Ariel Brooks, a nurse with ambition and a strong will. For a while, they were the picture of resilience, a couple who had fought their way out of poverty and into a modest middle-class life. They had a son, Jalen. But love doesn't always survive pressure. Arguments became routine, money, late nights, rumors. Ariel filed for divorce 5 years before Malik's first death. Jalen, now a teenager, barely spoke to his father. By the time Malik met Kiana Rhodes, a hairstylist with a magnetic charm, he was a man trying to rebuild what he had lost. But Kiana had her own secrets, ones that would later collide violently with Malik's past. What no one knew was that Malik's financial struggles weren't just about overdue bills or unpaid child support. They were tied to dangerous people. People who didn't forgive. People who didn't forget. And that's where the clock started ticking. Because in the weeks leading up to the night Malik was found buried, there were warning signs. Messages he didn't answer, arguments overheard by neighbors, and unexplained disappearances that hinted at something much bigger than just personal drama. What was Malik involved in? And who else already knew that his days were numbered? In the final week before Malik's first so-called death, his movements became erratic. He stopped showing up to job sites. He ignored calls from family. Yet, strangely, his bank account showed small deposits, cash transactions made from ATMs across different parts of Atlanta. Surveillance later confirmed it was him making those withdrawals, often at odd hours, wearing hoodies, keeping his head down. Neighbors recall hearing heated arguments coming from his small rental home on Sylvan Avenue. One neighbor remembers a voice shouting, "You think you can just walk away?" Followed by the sharp slam of a door. But no one called the police. In that neighborhood, people had learned that minding your own business sometimes meant staying alive. Then came the night of October 17th. A group of hunters, walking deep into a wooded area outside Fulton County, stumbled upon a mound of freshly disturbed soil. Beneath it was a body, partially decomposed, dressed in work clothes, with Malik's wallet and identification still in the pocket. For police, the scene raised immediate questions. There were no signs of a struggle around the burial site. No tire tracks leading in or out. It looked as though the killer, or killers, had experience. Within hours, word spread that Malik Jackson had been murdered. Ariel, his ex-wife, collapsed when officers came to her door. She told investigators she had not seen Malik in over 2 weeks. Their son, Jalen, refused to speak. Kiana Rhodes, his girlfriend, appeared shaken but gave a statement, saying Malik had been anxious and paranoid recently, convinced someone was following him. The community reacted quickly, too quickly. Social media posts appeared, some mourning Malik, others making vague accusations. One post stood out, a message from an anonymous account that read, "Some people don't stay buried." But there was a critical problem. The body was damaged, the face unrecognizable. Fingerprint results were inconclusive due to decomposition. Investigators sent samples for DNA testing, but the process would take several days. Still, they moved forward as if the body belonged to Malik Jackson. A funeral was arranged. A casket was lowered into the earth. Family and friends gathered, crying, praying, believing they were saying their final goodbyes. And then, 3 days later, everything changed. On October 21, a clerk at a small roadside motel made a routine call to 911. A man had checked in under a fake name but left behind a wallet. Inside was Malik's driver's license. The clerk swore the man looked exactly like the photo. Detectives pulled motel security footage. The timestamp showed a man, hood pulled low, walking past the front desk. He looked up briefly at the camera. Same build. Same walk. Same scar on his left cheek that Malik had gotten in a bar fight years earlier. This discovery shook the investigation. If Malik was alive, who was buried in that grave? And if he was alive, why had he allowed everyone, including his own son, to believe he was dead? Police began retracing Malik's final days, but they weren't the only ones looking for him. There were others, people who wanted to find Malik for reasons that had nothing to do with bringing him home safe. Each new lead made one thing clear: Malik hadn't simply vanished. He was running. And whoever was chasing him wasn't far behind. Detectives expanded their search beyond Atlanta, pulling security footage from gas stations, bus terminals, and highway cameras. Malik's trail was fragmented, but one pattern stood out: he never stayed in the same place for more than a few hours. Each stop was deliberate: quick ATM withdrawals, prepaid phone purchases, and food bought in cash. It looked less like panic and more like a plan. Yet, for someone who appeared to be carefully erasing his tracks, he made one critical mistake. At a rest stop outside Augusta, he used a card linked to an old account, an account investigators were monitoring. By the time police arrived, Malik was gone, leaving behind only a discarded soda bottle and a receipt timestamped just 20 minutes earlier. Meanwhile, the DNA results from the buried body came back. The man in that shallow grave was not Malik Jackson. He was an unidentified black male in his late 30s, with no criminal record, no fingerprints in any national database, and no immediate matches to missing persons. This meant someone had deliberately placed Malik's wallet and ID on another man's body. For detectives, the case shifted from a standard homicide to something far more complex. Someone wanted Malik declared dead before he truly was. The pressure intensified when another body was found. This time, there was no question about the victim's identity. On October 29, firefighters responded to a car engulfed in flames on an abandoned stretch of road. Inside, they found a single victim. The license plates had been removed, but the vehicle identification number traced back to a car Malik had purchased under Kiana Rhodes' name. Forensics confirmed it: Malik Trenard Jackson was dead. Again. This revelation stunned everyone involved. Detectives were now working 2 murders, one staged to look like Malik, and one that actually was Malik. The question changed. Who wanted Malik dead so badly that they killed an innocent man to set the stage for his murder? Investigators revisited everyone in Malik's orbit. Arielle Brooks Jackson, his ex-wife, admitted Malik had begged her for money days before he vanished. She refused, fearing he was involved with dangerous people. She also revealed that Malik had once hinted he was holding something that could ruin lives. Kiana Rhodes' story shifted under questioning. She initially said Malik planned to leave Atlanta for good, but later admitted she had helped him pack a bag and buy a burner phone. She claimed she didn't know why he was hiding but admitted she had been receiving threatening messages. Detectives also uncovered Malik's connection to Tavian Marks, a man with a long criminal history involving fraud, stolen vehicles, and drug trafficking. Tavian and Malik had once worked together on construction jobs, but their partnership ended abruptly after a financial dispute. Phone records revealed a series of calls between Malik and Tavian just days before the first body was discovered. What were they planning? Was Malik trying to escape Tavian, or working with him? And the most urgent question of all: who was the man buried in Malik's grave, and why was his death the beginning rather than the end of this story? Detectives began to map Malik's connections, tracing each thread as if pulling at a web. At the center of that web stood Tavian Marks. Tavian was no stranger to law enforcement. In the last decade, his name had surfaced in investigations involving stolen vehicles, illegal firearm sales, and an unconfirmed link to a regional drug network operating between Georgia and Alabama. Witness interviews painted Tavian as both charming and ruthless. He was known to front money for people in financial trouble, but repayment wasn't optional. Those who fell behind often vanished or reappeared with injuries they refused to explain. Malik had once borrowed from Tavian to keep his contracting business afloat. Records showed Malik paid him back, at least on paper. But detectives found evidence suggesting that debt was never truly cleared. Instead, Malik may have been coerced into working as a courier, transporting unmarked packages along interstate highways. It was a dangerous arrangement, and one Malik apparently wanted to escape. Investigators discovered a hidden compartment inside Malik's burned-out vehicle. Inside were charred fragments of what appeared to be financial ledgers, names, amounts, dates. Someone had tried to destroy them, but even damaged, they revealed patterns, regular payments to individuals tied to Tavian, and larger, less frequent sums to unknown accounts. This raised a critical possibility: Malik might have been collecting evidence, either to protect himself or to trade for his freedom. But if Malik had leverage, who else knew about it? Detectives turned back to Kiana Rhodes. Phone records placed her near the wooded burial site on the night the first body was discovered. When confronted, she claimed Malik had asked her to drive him there days earlier. He told her it was, just in case something happened. She said she never got out of the car. Her story added another layer: Malik hadn't simply been hiding, he had staged his own death. But someone had gotten to him before he could finish whatever plan he had set in motion. Meanwhile, Jalen Jackson, Malik's teenage son, received an anonymous message on social media. "Your father wasn't who you thought. Stop asking questions." This wasn't random harassment. It was a warning. Detectives placed protection around Ariel and Jalen while they pushed harder into Tavian's circle. Informants hinted that Tavian believed Malik had stolen something valuable, something that could shut the whole operation down. A raid on one of Tavian's known properties uncovered weapons, cash, and encrypted hard drives. One of those drives contained surveillance photos of Malik, taken weeks before his disappearance. In some, he was alone. In others, he was meeting with a man police couldn't immediately identify. That man would become the key to unraveling the entire case. His name was Rashad Fuller, a mid-level member of Tavian's crew. Rashad was arrested on unrelated charges and, facing a long sentence, began to talk. He confirmed that Malik had been working for Tavian, but said Malik recently discovered something he shouldn't have: bank records connecting Tavian to several unsolved homicides. Malik allegedly threatened to hand those records to authorities in exchange for immunity. According to Rashad, Tavian decided to make Malik disappear. The plan was simple: stage Malik's death, calm any heat from law enforcement, and then track him down once he felt safe enough to come out. But something went wrong. The man buried in Malik's place wasn't random. He was an acquaintance of Tavian's crew, a drifter who owed them money. They used him as a stand-in, planted Malik's ID, and assumed police would close the case quietly. For a short time, it worked. Malik thought he had bought himself a chance to disappear. But Tavian wasn't done. He had men watching every ATM, every motel, every back road Malik could use. When they finally found him, it wasn't a confrontation, it was an execution. The burned car wasn't just to destroy evidence. It was a message. Even now, years later, investigators admit they never fully recovered all of Tavian's records. Not every name on those ledgers has been identified, and not every connection has been explained. Malik Trenard Jackson was buried twice. The first time, it was to erase him. The second time, it was to make sure he could never come back. Malik's official cause of death was listed as multiple gunshot wounds, with accelerant used to destroy forensic evidence. Tavian Marks was arrested 6 months later on unrelated federal charges, but he never faced trial for Malik's murder. Key witnesses disappeared. Others refused to testify, citing fear for their lives. Without direct physical evidence linking Tavian to the crime, prosecutors could only watch as he was sentenced for financial crimes rather than homicide. For Malik's family, justice was complicated. Ariel attended every hearing, holding a small photo of Malik taken years before. She described him as a man who made mistakes but loved his son. Jalen remained quiet through most of the proceedings, only later admitting he avoided the courtroom because he couldn't reconcile the father he remembered with the man whose choices had led to violence. The unidentified victim from the first burial was eventually named through advanced DNA testing, Darnell Cooper, age 37, a transient man with no known family. His murder, like Malik's, remains officially unsolved. He became an invisible casualty in a larger scheme, a life ended to send a message he never understood. Investigators often say this case still lingers in their minds because it represents a rare kind of danger, violence that doesn't simply take a life but rewrites it, erases it, and replaces it with a false narrative. Every crime scene told a story. A shallow grave in the woods. A motel room with a forgotten wallet. A burned-out car on a deserted road. Each piece was connected by choices made in secret, choices that built toward a moment no one could undo. And even now, there are questions that may never be answered. How many people knew about Malik's plan to disappear? Did anyone try to help him, or were they all just waiting for their own chance to survive? Was there ever a way for him to escape without violence? Or once you owe the wrong people, is there no way out at all? One fact remains undeniable: Malik Trenard Jackson was buried twice. Once by his enemies. And once by the world that failed to save him. If you believe cases like this should never be forgotten, if you want more stories that uncover the hidden costs of choices, loyalty, and survival, make sure you subscribe right now. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, because the more people who know these stories, the harder it becomes for them to disappear. Click that notification bell, because the next case we bring you will take you even deeper into the world where truth is stranger, and far more dangerous, than fiction. Stay alert. Stay aware. And don't look away.